It's time for another installment of
Budget Bombs.
Powerful commander cards for under $1.
I'm your host, Joe Cherries.
I'm your host, Beezy, and that makes us the Nitpicking Nerds. Also, Amber is here, and I did that with the wrong finger and in the wrong order. But if you want to help me fix all of my mistakes, you can go to Patreon, where you can send us money directly and help me fix my mistakes, and I'll give you some cool merch in response.
And honestly, everyone who's supporting us on Patreon is supporting this channel and us directly. We appreciate that so much. If you want to support yourself and get 5% off using code
Nerds.
Then when you use code
Nerds,
then you'll be going to CoolStuffInc.com, which has all of your Magic needs, your singles. It has your, doubles. I don't know why I always say
singles, doubles, and triples.
Singles, doubles, triples, even has some home runs on there. You can get board games. That's all your gaming accessories, everything you need. It also has sealed product. Get everything Magic related from Cool Stuff Inc. using code
Nerds.
Yes.
And Dragon Shield, the best sleeves in the multiverse.
Good sleeves.
Another sponsor of this channel. There's 2 links in the descriptions. If you're US or you're EU, you click the link that's right for you, and then you go buy the sleeves straight from the source, and they're amazing.
Yes, and they're also on Cool Stuff Inc. If you want to get 5% off, go to Cool Stuff Inc. Use our code. You'll be supporting us in 2 different directions. Supporting Dragon Shield, the best sleeves in the multiverse.
Good sleeves.
God, it's so much. And in this video, there will be an ad for Moxfield.com. Put your time code guesses in the description below.
You're wrong.
You will be wrong. If you're right, you obviously cheated, and we will call you out on your cheating.
Happy birthday to everyone whose birthday is today.
Let's go. This is Budget Bombs.
Powerful commander cards for under $1.
So Budget Bombs is where we tell you cards under $1. So you don't not even $1. Most of these you can probably get 2 or 3 for $1.
Almost all of these are like less than 50 cents, actually.
Exactly. So if you're a budget player, these are the cards. This is the video for you.
This is how you build budget decks that can still actually compete and even punch up against some of these better, more expensive decks, and then you get to really rub it in when you win. So I'm thinking we should start with Tempted by the Auric, which is 1 blue for a sorcery, and for each opponent you gain control of 1 of their creatures or planeswalkers that cost 3 or less. And this is costing 3 or less, thirds of $1.
Okay, so this is 4 mana. We're getting a 3/4 pretty much every single time. Tokens are always going to be on the battlefield. You can steal all these tokens. Lots of commanders cost 3 or less. That's going to be very annoying for the player who's playing their, let's say Balemore deck. They're not going to be happy when you take their commander that their whole deck functions around.
Yeah, you only need to take 1 commander for this thing to be super mega worth it, because they don't go back. They have to destroy the thing. It's not like until this creature leaves, this is a sorcery. It just takes them forever, and Amber's so scared of it, she's leaving right now.
She definitely costs less than 3 mana.
Yes, almost all cats cost 3 or less. You can steal pretty much any cat on the battlefield. Just taking people's game pieces and using them for yourself, even if they're not super synergistic with you, is basically like removal plus, and this thing can be a 3-for-1.
Yeah, and the only thing about this card is make sure you're playing a heavy blue deck, right? Don't go with your 3-color blue decks on a budget are going to sometimes struggle to cast this, so I would stick to 1 or 2 color blue decks that can easily cast this card.
Right, and this next one is a multiverse legend that just completely got tanked in price. It's Goreclaw, Terror of Calcisma, reprinted in March of the Machines. It's 4 mana for a 4/3, and your creature spells with 4 or more power cost 2 less to cast, and whenever it attacks, all your things with 4 or more power get +1/+1 and trample.
This card is awesome. I've always been a big fan of Goreclaw. This thing cheats so much mana as long as your stuff has 4 or more power. That's a lot of creatures, and a lot of things that, other than our ETB utility creatures, we want to play creatures with big power. So, that's exactly what Goreclaw is paying off. If you cast as soon as you cast 2 spells with 4 more power, you've gotten the mana back that you spent on Goreclaw.
And it still has abilities. It's still a 5/4 attacker that pumps everything else, too.
It gives them trample. So, it's random, an Atali, the original Atali, doesn't have trample. Now when it attacks, it has trample. It's such an awesome card that is great for any Stompy deck, especially on a budget now. Multiversal Legends taking a lot of these awesome cards.
Yeah, it was $3 or $4, I think, and now it's 20 cents.
Yeah, it was $3 or $4, and then it got, it got a reprint, and then it got, put into, Secret Layer, and then it's this one's boop, nope, it's gone.
Yeah, it's over. What is next?
It is Unquestioned Authority. 2 and a white for an enchantment. Your creature has protection from all creatures. Wow, so it's not going to be able to be blocked, and when it enters, you draw a card.
Which is half of the reason I'm playing this. It replaces itself right away, so you don't have to do anything or accomplish anything other than resolve this spell, and you get your card back, and it's good for any deck that's trying to sneak through damage. One thing that's really hard to do on budget is making creatures unblockable.
Yeah.
You can get unblockable creatures. There's a bunch of crappy ones. But if it's a good creature that I want to make unblockable, it's hard to do.
Yeah, this card obviously just makes everything unblockable. When you have protection from creatures, it can't be blocked by creatures. That's just the rules of Magic the
What
Gathering.
else are they going to block with?
Yes, and any removal spell, like a Chupacabra or any other type of creature type, also cannot remove it, which is just upside bonus. We're mostly playing this for the unblockable. It's really we really like when these artifacts or enchantments cycle. So when they come down, you get your effect. It's okay, now we're gonna get 2 for 1 if it gets removed. No, because we got our card back right away when we played it.
Yeah, I also found this to be a really good like infect budget card. Like if you're building a budget infect deck, you definitely want this thing as long as you have white.
Yeah, exactly. You can push through damage with this card. I mean, this card is great for, you said infect. This is great for any deck that's Voltron. That's what the word I'm looking for.
Combat damage matters. Like you get a bunch of like Mask of Memories and like budget versions of like the Swords of X and Y. Like here you go.
All right, next we have Springleaf Drum, 1 mana artifact. Tap it and another creature you control. Add a mana of any color. As long as you're playing a deck that has a super high creature count and you're going to have creatures on the battlefield, this is a 1 mana rock that taps for 1 at the cost of a creature. Just use one with Summoning Sickness that you weren't going to use anyway, and now you're just profiting 1 mana. It's a 1 mana rock that makes 1. We really don't have many of those, and when we're playing on a budget, we especially don't have anything even close to that.
Yeah, I have come like so far around on Springleaf Drum to where I just like completely ignored it. And now I'm like, no, this is pretty much goes in a lot, like tons of budget decks. And it's going to be amazing. It's going to be better than some of the cards that your non-budget opponents are playing. That's how good it's going to be.
This card can easily outperform cards like just simply like a Signet.
Like Arcane Signet, it could be better.
It can just outperform Signets because this is 1 mana, and as long as you reliably have that creature on the battlefield, actually this card, if you reliably can always have that creature, this card is better than Arcane Signet. Now that's not always true, and that is why this card is worse than Arcane Signet overall on average, but that doesn't change the fact that it's still an absurdly strong card when you have the creature to do it with.
Yeah, I think this card even sees some like fringe CDH plays. So, like I definitely am way 180'd on Springleaf Drum, and I'm super thrilled to play it in a lot of budget decks. Next is one of my favorite little budget reanimator targets. It's Dusk Mangler. It's 5 black for a 5/4. As an additional cost to cast it, you got to discard a card, you got to pay 4 life, or you got to sacrifice a creature. None of those are really that difficult. But when it enters, your opponents do all 3 of those things, and no one ever remembers that they have to do all 3, and you're going to have to remind them.
So if your opponents all have a creature on the battlefield and the card in their hand, this thing is like a 7-for-1 right away, because you get your creature, whatever, what's to say we paid for life. They lose 12 life combined total. Discard a card, that's 4 cards lost, or 3 cards lost, sorry. And then they sacrifice a creature, that's 3 more cards lost. And now you still have a creature on the battlefield after all of that. This card is amazing on a budget. It's a little overcosted in your non-budget decks, but still fairly strong. Like, you can play this in non-budget decks.
It still does things.
But on a budget, this card is absurd. We're not getting... How many 7-for-1s are we getting on a budget that aren't board wipes? Like,
yeah, and
any?
The reason this is such a good reanimator target is because when you reanimate it or flicker it or something, you don't have to pay the cost to cast the spell because you're not casting it. So you just get the 7-for-1 and you don't got to pay anything.
Yeah, Dusk Mangler, budget reanimator, budget graveyard decks. Cheat this thing into play any way you can, and it's very strong.
It's kind of just awesome.
All right, let's move on to Court of Ire. We have 3 red for an enchantment. When it enters the battlefield, you become the Monarch, which means that your end step, you'll draw a card, and whenever you deal combat damage, someone's going to take the monarchy from you. All right, and then on your upkeep, we can shock something, or if we're still the Monarch, we can just go ahead and deal 6 damage to something.
An enchantment that replaces itself right away and then accrues value over the rest of the game until it's gone?
Yes, so the monarchy is just very strong, and cards that give you the monarchy give you an advantage right away. Like you said, this will replace itself every single time. There's essentially no way other than someone flashing in their own monarch card before your end step of losing the monarch before your end step, because you lose it via combat damage, which you can't beat out during your own turn. So you're going to draw that card, get it back, and then it doesn't even matter. We don't need to protect the monarchy necessarily. So we can give away the monarchy. The shock is still powerful. That's going to kill a lot of utility creatures. And if at any point it comes back to us with the monarchy, we're killing the biggest and best threats on the battlefield now. This thing can also just dome faces.
Yeah, dome it for 7 is pretty scary. And I've had a lot of games where this is in play and there's somebody else as the threat, and you go, leave me as the monarch and I'll just shoot them for 7, and that player goes, oh, wait a minute, what's going on?
And the monarch is a great political tool for any power level. So if you can always just make the deal, hey, take the monarchy for 1 for me, and then I'll take it back from you for 1. And
it's a classic deal.
It's a classic deal, but and it protects you from being attacked by their other creatures. It's like, hey, don't attack me with your 7/7. Send that 1/1 at me, and I'll just
I'll give you a card for your troubles. This card also is like a monarchy, but it kind of, the last few times I've seen it, has just been a monarchy, but it's every single turn. It's Sig River Cutthroat. Got reprinted in like a battle or a Zendikar Rising precon, so just tanked it from like $20 to nothing. And it says if on everyone's end step, if an opponent lost 3 or more life this turn, you draw a card. That happens quite frequently, whether people are trying to or not.
This card is pretty strange and very strong. Combat damage is just going to be going around anytime. And oh, let's just take for reference, somebody fetches and shocks. I mean, you're not playing a budget game at that point.
We're punching up. We can take them.
We're punching up. We're trying to fight the big boys. We're playing Punch Out here. We're taking on Mike Tyson with our little tiny Little Mac. Little tiny Little Mac is taking on Mike Tyson here. They fetch shock. They lost 3 life. You're gonna draw on the end side. This card is very strong.
It does a lot, and it's like just super cheap. Quite often, you can deal 3 damage the turn you play Sig, it's only 2 mana, and then you draw a card right away, and now what? I played a 2-mana creature that cycled itself? You want to kill that? Probably still you do, but I get all my value right away, and now it's just gravy when I just start going across the table, drawing cards. Oh, somebody else is the threat. Thanks for the card. Oh, I have an ability to activate on your turn. Thanks for the card. Just keeps going.
Losing 3 life is not a lot to ask. It's just going to happen over the course of the game. It doesn't even really ask much of you. You're going to want to dish out damage already. And your opponents are going to want to dish out damage already. So this card is just going to start drawing cards for free. It's going to demand an answer super early. And you only spend 2 mana, so if they even spend like a 3-mana rule spell, all right, you want mana positive. And like we said, you probably drew a card the first turn it was out because you planned around it. You're like, when I play this, I'll have this 3/3 flyer, get in, draw a card.
And to clarify, I'm not even talking about this as a commander. It's probably great as a commander. This just can probably go in any blue-black budget deck because it's that good. It's like way stronger than a lot of the other stuff you have access to. Next is a really, really weird card that's actually been pretty sweet. It's Pair O Dice Lost. It's from Unfinity, so you may not have even known it existed. It's 3 green for an instant. You roll 2d6s, and then you add them up. So let's say I roll a 7. Now I can return any number of cards from my graveyard to my hand that costs 7 or less. And the cool thing is that includes all lands. So this always returns all your lands from your graveyard to your hand.
So we're on a budget here. So what we're going to do is we're going to have our Terramorphic Expanse, our Evolving Wilds, our maybe even a Fabled Passage if we stretched our budget a little bit.
How about Ash Barrens?
How about Ash Barrens? All these cards are just going to be sitting in our graveyard. All right, roll those dice. Oh, I did really bad. I only got a 2. All right, I'll return 3 lands, and I still get my 2 drop back. What a weird, strange card. The fact that you can always get back every single land in your graveyard.
It's pretty sweet. So you're not going to go down cards. You don't really have to worry about it. You're just going to go, great, I'm going to get like 7 cards back every time with this for 5 mana, and it exiles stuff so you can't loop it. But this card is kind of unknown and pretty sweet when you're working on a budget.
It is a little volatile because obviously in games of budget, sometimes you won't have a lot of lands in your graveyard.
You can never know for sure what you're going to get.
Exactly. You might not have a lot of lands in your graveyard. There's not a ton of lands that put themselves in your graveyard, but it's still a decent card. It's still some good card advantage. You just got to know that when you roll those dice, sometimes you're going to get a 2 and it's going to really stink. It's like, oh, I had no lands and I got a 2 drop back. It's like, that's going to be a really bad card. That's why it's a budget card. That's why we're talking about it in Budget Bombs and not in our best cards ever.
I mean,
series.
the ceiling is kind of ridiculous.
Oh yeah, rolling 2 6s, getting 12 mana value back, absurd.
Or even just like rolling a 7, getting 3 things back, and getting 3 lands. Like that is kind of ridiculous.
The middle ground is solid, and 7 is your average roll.
Oh look, now we get to do another completely ridiculous card. This card's actually super mean, and I think we called it out during our top 10 Infinity. But this is Exchange of Words, and it's 1 blue, and when it enters the battlefield, you exchange the text boxes of 2 creatures. I don't know how this is legal. This is not a silver border card. This is playable in Commander. So you exchange their text boxes, and we found out that if one of them leaves, the other one just keeps the text box. So you're going to take somebody else's commander's text box, and you're going to give their commander a useless text box, meaning their commander is just kind of stranded on the battlefield as nothing, and you get to take the advantage of the abilities.
Yeah, and you do it to 2 commanders. It's not just 1 commander. You just have 2 commanders. Switch abilities. Like someone's playing a Balmor deck, someone's playing a Glissa deck. When you switch the words on those cards, the other one doesn't like the other one.
Neither player is happy with that. So yeah, you can either take the best creature from somebody or give away 2 creatures to 2 other people, and this doesn't change the control of the creature, so they can just attack right away.
It's so silly. It's really, really dumb that, again, just trapping these commanders on the battlefield without even playing an enchantment on them and doing it to potentially 2. Like, I think that is the strength of this card. I think
they're not tied together, so one leaves, the other one's still useless.
I think the fact that you can just switch 2 commanders' text boxes, give 2 players who don't care about the other commander's text box to each other, I think that is where this card shines. It's like, literally, 3 mana, answer 2 commanders just on the battlefield.
Right, and we're paying, like 10 cents for this card. This is a pretty sweet budget edition.
This is a dumb card. I mean, I agree. I don't know how this one feels very silver border.
Yeah, exchange text boxes. That does not sound right.
I mean, I guess to be fair, mutate feels very silver border, and that is
It was, right?
Kind of.
Sort of.
What augmentation was. But like mutate when they printed it still felt like a silver border, but that was a main set. That wasn't just like anything.
That was the marquee mechanic.
Like, at least this was in a silver border set.
Yes, and if I'm looking for silver border cards, I can build a whole silver border deck on Moxfield.com. All I got to do is start typing them in on the handy dandy search bar, filling them in my deck. I can look at it through visual grids. I can look at it through a text box if I don't like pictures, which I do. And you can sort it through any number of methods. It's very easy.
Yes, and like BC said, you can build with silver border cards. See, when you first put your commander in, when you search for commanders to put in, it'll search all legal commanders. Well, all you have to do is uncheck that box. All of a sudden, you can search for literally anything. I have
Baron von Kaut.
Yes, I have a Rule 0 Elspeth deck. The Elspeth Sun's Champion is in the command zone. That's not technically legal. We can also, while we're searching the top right corner, it's only going to give us legal cards. Also, fix the search. You can make it so the search will show you cards that are technically not legal because Moxfield's got all the settings you want and need.
It's even got a social media feature, which allows you to follow us on the website to see all the decks we make. We're looking to hit 10,000 followers, and I'm thinking you can help us get there.
But yes, go to Moxfield, make an account, follow us, and then make a second account and follow us again so that we're cheating the system to get to 10,000. Don't tell Moxfield, they'll yell at us.
Yes. How about a black bordered card?
All right, a black border card. An actual factual in a black bordered set.
Well, I guess they all are, but how about a non-Infinity card?
Yes, a card not from Infinity. This one is Semester's End. We can exile any number of creatures or planeswalkers that we control. Boop, they go away until the end step, and then they return with a +1/+1 counter or a loyalty counter.
Yeah, these cards, none of them are like busted or anything, and I kind of like Semester's End. In any deck that's like flickers, I don't care about the counters. This one just got reprinted, so it's 25 cents, but every version of this is like $2-3. So if you're trying to spend less than $1, this is really one of your only options for mass flicker, but while also surviving board wipes. I want him to come back on the end step.
Yeah, exactly. And also on top of that, like you said, you don't care about the counters, but this has extra synergy for +1/+1 counters decks. Like it's not that you don't play it for that necessarily, but if you're playing like the new card, like the Loyalist, whenever it gets a +1/+1 counter, draw a card. Okay, when I flick it out and it returns, there's just that little tiny synergy with all these kind of +1/+1 counters cards.
Yeah, it's pretty solid. It will be good. You want some board wipe protection in your go wide non-token creature decks, and this is going to be one of your only options as a budget bomb.
Yeah, on a budget, especially if you're playing like $20 or $50 budget, this is literally like one of, if not the only option.
Right. How about X draw spells?
Well, X draw spells, we have Pull from Tomorrow, X blue, draw X cards, then discard a card. So we can draw like 10 cards and then only discard one. Obviously, this card wants you to go a little bit bigger than usual because obviously, if you're doing it for like 3, it's like, oof, draw 3, discard 1 at 5 mana is pretty rough. So but when you get to the big numbers, draw like 6, discard 1 is really, really strong.
Yeah, I like this better than the other ones, like compared to like Stroke of Genius. You pay 5 mana, you draw 2 cards. But if you play Pull from Tomorrow and you pay 5 mana, you draw 3 cards and discard 1, and I'd so much rather do that.
Yeah, which is completely fair. And also, the only downside to not playing Stroke of Genius is you don't get the old guy going, I love that guy.
I mean, you can't. Like, it reduces a little bit better, but they kind of still reduce the same, right? Just because there's colorless in the mana cost, you're still saving colorless on the X, so it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, completely fair. Yeah, super solid card. Next, we have Chain Reaction. This is just a board wipe. 2 red, deal X damage to each creature, where X is the number of creatures on the battlefield. 10 creatures, everything takes 10 damage. This card is just a red board wipe. It is one of the only red board wipe options when you're playing on a budget. It might literally be the only one because Blasphemous Act is just out of like budget bomb range.
There's like Volcanic Torrent is another good one I like, but Chain Reaction, it's really just red Wrath of God. It has killed every creature on the battlefield many, many times, and often, maybe if you have the best, some like 20/20, that's not going to kill that, and you can attack somebody. Chain Reaction's amazing, and some people don't know it exists, but it's like 12 cents.
Yeah, exactly. It's just a budget bomb. If you need a budget Wrath for your red deck, this is the go-to.
Budget staple, for sure.
Yeah. Next, we have Treeshaker Chimera. This is a 7 mana, 8/5. It must be blocked by every creature that can block it, and when it dies, you draw 3 cards. So this thing is just a huge beater. It's a pseudo board wipe. It's going to kill all the best things you want to get rid of off of whatever opponent side you can. And then you just draw a fresh 3. If it gets exiled, obviously you get nothing. There is downside to this card. This is big, splashy, but it does a lot.
Yeah, it makes all your other creatures unblockable if you want to send a lethal attack at somebody, so it can kill players. It can decimate their board if you don't have other creatures on board. It can be like a kind of a nice little reanimator target because it's a little chunky. Maybe your green-black deck wants it. And it just draws you cards in green also on a budget. It really just does like a little bit of everything.
So all I have to question about this card, because this card is super solid on the budget, what is the flavor? What does Tree Shaker Chimera do to make everything block it? Lure is a card, like, and usually it's like a distraction. Someone's like, whoa, look over here. And like,
there's an angler or like a unicorn or something.
Exactly. It's like, it's always like some sort of distraction when they're doing this. What is this card doing? This is a giant chimera. Why does everything have to block?
Forests and the trees move.
And why does it have to be blocked? I just don't understand.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's like a hypnotism mythology thing.
All right, let's move on to Duplicant. 6 mana. When it enters, exile target creatures. Its power and toughness is equal to whatever creature was last exiled with it, because it's imprinted technically. Imprinted is such a weird mechanic.
Yeah, and if you don't exile anything, like if you exile a commander and they put it back to the zone, it just stays as a 2/4.
Yeah, exactly. So this thing is just, 6 mana exile effect. And ultimately, it is more expensive than we're going to pay for a lot of our like ETB destroy creatures. You can pay like 4 or 5 to get that effect pretty consistently, even on a budget. But exile is so much better, and it has a huge upside comparatively, which answers a lot of threats that sometimes destroy can't get rid of.
And it's an artifact, which means there's even more ways to tutor for it and reduce the cost and get it back from the graveyard than there was already. And I was actually really surprised that we've never talked about Duplicant on budget bombs.
Yeah, I'm quite surprised too. The card is super solid. Like you said, artifact synergies, ETB synergies. There's a lot of random things. You can flicker this card to keep doing it over and over again. Exile something brand new to give it some brand new power. And this thing has a little upside of like, if the biggest creature is like a 12/12, cool. I get a 12/12 Duplicant that's now a big giant threat that can block anything or attack anything.
It's almost like you gain control of it, right? Like sometimes there's a star and it keeps the star attributes. It still checks whatever's in exile. So if it's like Tarmogoyf, you still get those stats. It's like a 4/5 or whatever.
Okay, classic Tarmogoyf.
That's the first one I thought of.
The budget bomb staple.
About Uvenwald Hydra.
All right.
There's an Uvenwald Hydra.
Let's move on to a brand new card, and I'm super excited for this to already be a budget bomb. And
already?
Please stay in budget bomb status. This is Pylon. It is 3 in a black. Destroy target creature or planeswalker. We don't care about that last part. Surveil 2, but it's got a really sweet line of text that makes this card real good. Convoke.
Yeah, you buried the lead.
You can tap your creatures to cast this spell. This card is amazing. If you've ever felt like, oh, on a budget I need to play Murder. On a budget I need to play Hero's Downfall. No! Play this instead. This is so much better. Pylon is absurdly good. This card can just be free. When we're playing on budgets, we're not winning via combo. That's just not something that happens almost at all. So we're going to be winning via combat, meaning we're going to have creature-based decks with creatures on the battlefield that can tap to cast this spell.
Yeah, it's really fantastic to be able to tap all your mana, use your resources 100%, and still have more resources and mana to use virtually on your opponent's turn that they can't predict because you're tapped out. What are they supposed to play around?
Yeah, Convoke is just incredibly powerful, makes cards like this so powerful. If you want another budget bomb, I'll throw one more for you right here. Meeting of the Minds, pretty sure that card's just amazing in budget commander.
It's pretty good.
It looks amazing. I mean, divination that you have to pay 0 mana for in a lot of cases is absurd. You don't have to spend a turn spending Meeting of the Minds. You just like you don't have to spend a turn playing Pylon. You just play out your board as normal and then play these cards anyway. These cards are so good.
Yeah, don't sleep on the cheap Convoke cards. They read clunky, but they play way better than that.
Convoke is absurdly strong in Commander, an already very creature-based format.
It's just that most of the Convoke cards are bad, which is why before we said Convoke wasn't that good.
Not anymore. This new set is filled with great Convoke cards. Filled with them. We do budget bombs every single month. If you would like to check out last month's video and see what budget bombs we suggest from them, it's right there. It's right over there.
It's 15 all new bombs.
Go click them. Peace out, Tribe Scouts.